Man, Drew, great to have you, the face behind Selway Archery, one of the biggest, longest supporters we've had. So thank you very much for being here, and just thanks for being a kick-ass dude.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Glad to be here.
I saw you were in the shop working on a little bit this morning, making some quivers.
hmm
But
Yeah, I usually run in the mornings, hit some things real quick. Just I'm at the point now where we were behind the eight ball for a while, and finally got to a point where I can streamline everything and not have to spend a ton of time in the shop.
yeah,
Heck yeah.
what's your day like? Because you're one of those guys that it doesn't matter if I message you at 2 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. You're apparently awake. So what's your day like with the work and the kids and everything? Because
I was gonna
you got
say
a
it's the million
family unit
kids that
up
he
there.
has. That's the
You
part
got a
of it.
family
Uh,
unit, man.
yeah, so I mean, normal day is I usually get about anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
It just kind of depends. Just I've kind of been that way most of my life, actually, other than teenage years. But yeah, so get up in the morning. Depends on like summertime now. Like all the kids are home, and so my wife, she works opposite shift, so she works nights. So if I can, I get up in the morning. Usually get my oldest up just to have her awake so she can keep an eye on things, and then
yeah,
I'll jet run to work, knock out a few hours here, get whatever needs done here, and then get back home. Usually get some stuff done around the house, and then it's grab a kid or grab the boys, and I'm either taking my daughter to swim or I'm running the boys at wrestling practice, and then that takes up a good portion of the evening.
yeah,
And then get the kids down, and then in the evening times, usually a lot of times if I can, I like to work out in the morning.
yeah,
But I'll a lot of oftentimes it's at 10:30. The nice thing about having the gym at home is I could just run out to the barn, and if it's midnight
yeah,
I can go lift if I'm feeling like that or whatever. But yeah, so yeah, it's kind of this, I don't know, it's like Groundhog Day a lot, but
yeah.
yeah, I got the flexibility. I could do whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I think a lot of people they don't glamorize enough in this success driven, success laden society where everybody is like, you got to work harder, you got to work more hours, you got to do this, do this, do this, is like the monotony of it. Like success, a lot of times on a family level, is doing exactly what you said. It's not the big arcing stuff. It's getting the kid up at the right time, getting them to the right place at the right time, and it's just bang, bang, bang. And that's what I think a lot of people overlook in this whole thing is, dude, you're doing the one of the most awesome things a man can do, which is raise and lead a family. So it's like it's very cool to me to interact with you behind the scenes and get those text messages where you're like, yeah, you care about your training, you got questions there, you got stuff with work, you got stuff with family. Love when you send me updates on your kids and the wrestling and everything like that. So you're a guy that I've like really gravitated to. One, because in the beginning you helped me so much, just point me in the right direction with traditional archery, but then just learning who you are and seeing how you think and operate, dude, you're a real guy. And I think that's one of the reasons that Ross wanted to have you on here, but also one of the reasons I'm most proud to work with you is because if I ask you a question, I'm going to get a pretty honest answer. Like it's pretty straightforward, no bullshit. And you need people like that in your life, man. So that's just a quick thank you to you for everything you've helped me with
Yeah,
personally. And I know
Even
dude,
if we
you know
don't
what you've done.
I
ask.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. A lot of times it's unsolicited.
We've
Yeah,
had a
no,
we've had
dude.
a pretty we've had a pretty hellacious text group here the last few weeks.
It's been good.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of good stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, dude, I
But
appreciate that, man. And I've always kind of, I don't know where it comes from because my dad's a pretty soft-spoken guy, outside of
yeah.
work, and yeah, I don't know, dude. I just always prided myself on, I want everyone to know where I stand because it's a good filter for
Yeah.
keeping the bullshit out of your life.
Well, it does because obviously in my position with Sornex and everything else, I'm on the marketing side. I'm on the kind of branding side, and you end up in rooms with a lot of times with people that are fantastic, but then people that have power, and you have to juggle that dynamic because a lot of times the people with power may not be a person that you gel with, but they're important to the entity that I work for. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's not always a room full of people that are just buddies. It's a lot of times it's business relationship mixed with friendship. And for me, that's a tough thing to juggle. But as I've gotten older, having more confidence, like you said, to just put my foot where I stand, and have some thought behind it. Don't just emotionally run my mouth, but like have some thought behind
Right.
what I say, some proof in the pudding of what I'm trying to do in my life. And that weeds people out really quick. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
if
yeah.
you're changing for the better, you kind of see the walls or the room divide, at midnight. One group's going to bed, one group's going out. And I've been on both sides of that fence. But for me now, the direction I'm going, it's like it's better for me to go to bed. It's better for me to keep this process going forward because, dude, I have to keep myself accountable to so many things, and training, diet, relationship. All these things are important to me now, so all of these things get precedent. So it's awesome to surround yourself with people that have the same kind of view on life and go in the same direction, because I don't view success like a lot of people are pitching success. Like I don't need $10 million and 15 businesses to feel successful, but it's I don't know, man. It's just been really cool to get to know you, and you've helped me in ways like,
That's all. Oh, thank you so much, man.
it's
And
just good.
I think there's a lot of those guys that we talk about that they're trying and they chase that having a ton of businesses. And I could be wrong, and there's probably some anomalies to this, but I think a lot of those guys are trying to fill a void
Oh, dude,
emotionally.
100%.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
think I think
and
that's what men
yeah.
do. We project in our weakness.
Hmm.
Wherever we're the weakest, we try to be the loudest. And I think a lot of these guys. I mean, I had a friend. I've talked about it before. You know, broken, scared little boy. How do you fix that? Well, you put on a ton of muscle. You tattoo yourself whole, and you're like, stay the fuck away from me. So for me, I relate to it in that front because it was the answer to my problems. Just leave me alone, and I'm good. And I think a lot of these guys they have a different kind of chip. They got something on their shoulder they're trying to erase or prove wrong or something about them. And I admire it, but I think sometimes other areas get lost in the fray. You know?
And it can be a really good it can be a good driver too. Like I was just watching this documentary on Dale Senior,
Oh
Yeah. Oh,
yes.
Dale
yeah.
Earnhardt, and Junior's on there talking about that's all he wanted to do in life was to get his dad's approval, and look where it
Yeah.
got him. I mean, it's like so yeah, there could be some good come out of that stuff as well.
For sure. Yeah. With your kids, how do you kind of structure that so they get dad's approval? Like how do you hold that line as a father
Oh,
of
dude,
you're
man,
doing
you
great,
gotta.
but you can do better,
Man, I think the number one thing that if I could go back in time, 10 years, back to when my wife and I first had our first, kid when, she's 14 now. And I would go, knowing what I know now, I would go work on my own bullshit. So
Yeah.
I don't project that onto them like I have a little bit.
Yeah.
This need to, oh shoot, how was the best way to frame this? Just not demanding, like I don't know. A lot of times I heard do as I say, not as I do growing up,
Sure.
and I think that's a bad way to go about things. I think you have to, if you're going to lead kids, I think you need to be the example
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
And I did a
Yeah.
piss poor job of that for a long time. And at 37, I'm just now starting to. This guy I listened to, John Deloney, he talks about pulling bricks out of your backpack so you're not carrying around this weight with you all the time. This emotional weight and going through and sorting through all that stuff. And life is, you kind of learn as you go at times. And that's the one thing for me is like just being a better leader, and
Yeah.
showing them instead of just saying, hey, this is what you need to do. As far as the wrestling stuff goes with the kids, I put a lot of that on their coaches.
Yeah.
My kids are working with super high level guys that know a hell of a lot more than I do when it comes to it. So I lean on those guys for advice on, how to handle, the losses and how to handle, building them up. And so I take a lot from those guys as well. But
Yeah.
I think with a lot of it just is being encouraging and then give them a place like to be emotional. Little
Yeah.
boys like growing up, as we all know, like, suck it up, kid. And,
Yep.
we've all heard that before. But yeah, give them the space to open up and provide them that safety where they can do that.
Yeah.
So they're not dealing with it at 35, 36, 37.
It's pretty
Yeah.
funny because the three of us are all in different stages kids wise. Like Brandon's got his oldest who's
Graduated. Yeah.
just graduated, whatever, and then Drew's kind of got like the like close to teenagers and obviously some younger, and then mine are like in the younger stage. But then like it's also the thing that you notice the things that you change from each successive kid. You know,
Yeah.
like the first one, which we all have, is like that's the one where nobody knows what's going on, and you do a bunch of things you know you're not gonna probably enjoy doing or like supposed to do. And then like the second one where I'm at right now, it's like, okay, a lot of these things with the first one weren't that big of a deal. I don't need to make a big deal about this kind of stuff. And so you have like the different little bit of a relationship with the second one, and then like Drew's past that because he's got like 11 of them. And so it's like by the time by the time you get down to the one that's the youngest now, like it's like, you know, we've got the structure, like the systems
Yeah.
here, and it's like we know, you know, the personalities are obviously different, but it's like, you know, you have this system built, but then it's like there's way less just because you've done it now however many multiple times. Like there's just things that aren't as big of a deals as we would have thought they were with like previous kids, right? And then so like
Yeah.
we learn how even just our own, like Drew and I have talked about this, like the level of patience that you acquire through like just the ages of the kids, but then having more of them and then more of them are around, and it's like you cannot be short fused when you've got that kind of stuff going on, because then everybody's feeling it all the time. You know, like it's brought on a level of patience, like and with even just my two with being 6 and almost 3, where it's like I can't even imagine having as many as Drew's got running around. Like, dude, you can't be just lighting fuses and blowing up every time something, you know, isn't it with one kid. Like you can't do that, because then the other however many of them are going to be feeling it as well, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be real honest. Like, I've got one kid, don't have a second. So there was no, like, oh, I can improve myself as a father.
Right.
And, like, that's one of the biggest things that I probably struggle with as a man was, or is the fact that, you know, when he was young, when my son was young, was when my powerlifting was taking off. And I was just assholes and elbows dedicated to that. You know, I was around, but I wasn't there, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like, that's a tough one for me to kind of rationalize, because I look at this kid, he's amazing, incredible student, and I wonder where my fingerprints are on that life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? As much as like you guys have really done an admirable job from my viewpoint, because I can point to so many things that I messed up. You know, and like what Drew said, a lot of times I think he has just wanted to find my approval, which he always had, but being able to communicate that in a way that's responded to, because you know, a lot of my stuff, I'm on the road a lot, I'm on this, that, and dude, I look back, I would have done a billion things different. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with another child, might have improved some of that stuff and whatnot. But that's
Mm-hmm.
something I really wrestle with. And I encourage you guys to look at yourselves and be like, no, I was in that same boat too, but I did things different and better.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I really, as a man, I look for in other men is like the way they father, because it's a definite weakness in myself. You know, I don't praise myself as a father. I'm trying to fix those things now, but it's a lot, you know, it's a lot harder to rebuild a bridge that's broken than it is to
Mm-hmm.
lay the thing right the first time. But it's there. And it's like, if I gave up and didn't try, then what's the point? But
Yep.
now, like, trying to make those inroads and deepen that connection is like such an important thing, because it's the only kid I got. I'm the only dad he's got. You know what I mean? So trying to balance all that stuff, but being around guys like yourselves and other men that do a great job. Like Bert's a great example as a boss
Mm-hmm.
and as a father. I mean, and really my community has just shifted to that. So I'm grateful to be around people like you guys. I watch you guys kind of like with a little bit of a jealousy sometimes, because you're there, you're invested. And I think that's something that the world needs more of, is invested fathers.
Oh, dude,
So
I never thought in a million years I'd be here. Like, if you go back to Drew at
yeah,
21 and you ask it, like, hey, dude, at 37, you're going to have 5 kids. And, like, there's no
And not be
chance,
done
dude.
probably.
Right, right, right. Marry an Irish Catholic girl. But,
yeah,
but, dude, like you were talking about, Ross, like, there's so many things. Like, you can have this foundational, structure in your home, but each kid is gonna be different. They're gonna test you in different ways. Like my fourth kid, my youngest boy, that he like he's going to get my attention whether I want it or whether I want to give it to him or not. Like he's willful, and he's going to get whether he's acting out or whatever. He's going to get me,
Yeah.
and so what I found like with him, whenever he's kind of maybe acting out and he's 4, going to be 5, I know that in that moment, what that boy needs is connection. He wants whatever, like he wants a hug, he wants to sit down and play. Like I know in that moment when he starts to act up, that's the trigger. Like, okay, I got to go, give him that time. The other ones, like my oldest boy Hudson, like he's like, your typical firstborn son. Like this kid is just a
Yeah.
stud. Like academically, he's very polite. He doesn't act out. Like so, like when again going, and then Hank is kind of somewhere in the middle, and then have Harrison, and he's just like, no, you're right now. Like this is how it's going to be. And there's a lot. And it's funny. I see a lot of my own insecurities come out,
Yeah.
in him, and he's of all of the kids, he's the one that's really kind of changed my perspective on things. Like
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for that boy. Obviously all
Yeah.
my kids, but just there's something different with him. Like he's like, no, this is how we're gonna do things. Like I don't let him set the tone, but just
Right.
just how he is, and how he's like he demands me to be better.
It's
Yeah.
funny because like no matter how many you have, all of them, if it's one, if it's five, or whatever, both good and bad, all of them are mirrors of you. In
Yeah.
various
Mm-hmm.
ways. Like you're gonna have like with the same ones with I think all of our oldest boys because we're all of our oldest are boys, and they all have a lot of very similar qualities just because they're the firstborns. Like there's that stereotypical firstborn son, like you said, Drew, but at the same time, like because he was the first, and there was like the things where we're learning a lot of stuff with him as we're parenting for the very first time, like the he can get hot, like mine can get
Yeah.
hot. You know what I mean? And it's like I remember being when he was like super little, and I didn't have a lot of my stuff under control yet when he would explode or stuff like that, and you just respond in kind a lot of times, even sometimes accidentally, right? But then it just continues, so it's just really funny to see how the different reflections of yourself and the little quirks and the little things that come out that you recognize in yourself show up differently, both good and bad. Like there's things with my oldest where it's like, dude, that kid can sit down, and if he's working on something with his hands, the world is dead. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't,
Yeah.
he will completely zone out, do whatever he's doing, and like you
Uh-huh.
could be yelling at him 3 inches from his face and he will not hear you. He's working on something with his hand, right? And but then with my daughter, she's like, she'll be playing with total just girly stuff, right? And in 2 seconds just like want to come over and hold my hand and like, daddy, come do this real quick, and then like she is just every 15 seconds she's onto something new. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, there's all these funny just little things like that you recognize, and then when you start to see them in the kids, that's like the trigger for me where it's like, okay, he's doing this, that's because he's learned it from me, right?
Yep.
Good, like
Yeah.
good and bad. So it's like, okay, there's my thing to work on because he's doing it. It's like, so you don't even recognize it when you do it yourself most of the time, but then when it's
Yeah.
done back to you is the thing when you're like, oh, I probably need to get this under control. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude,
Well,
hundred
Drew,
percent. That was the. Oh, sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
no, you. I was just going to say, I mean, you kind of mentioned having this realization point at 37, 35, where it's like, I think we're always changing and evolving, but at some point you kind of start to weigh out, like, wait a minute, I have changed. I have to change more. And then you start to look at why am I this way? When was that for you guys? Because we're all three different stages, like you said, where it's like, not only am I changing, but I have to change.
Mm-hmm.
And what am I changing from? Like, what caused me to be this way? Because, dude, that was one that I really had to wrestle with. Like, after my injury, who am I? What is this all for? Why was I doing this? All those questions kind of came from a tragedy standpoint. They weren't questions I asked when things were good. It was kind of in the reflective stage. But 32 was my intro because that's when I got hurt. So from 32 to 43, it's been like a 10-year, 11-year reflection of the first 32 years of my life. And like, why did I feel this way? Why did I believe these things? Why did I think these things? And dude, that's one thing that I don't know if you can translate that to your kid. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's that age of wisdom. Not saying that I'm wise, but in the age of wisdom, we know that a 60-year-old man is going to give us the right advice most of the time, or a 70-year-old man is going to give us the right
Yep.
advice. But me as a 43-year-old man, having that realization now that what I'm telling my son is all of my mistakes wrapped into advice, right? But now he's 18, so he can't hear me at the level of understanding and belief because he's got to experience it too. That's the hardest thing that I've found as a parent is like, how do I impart my mistakes? How do I explain that there's always a comeback from any mistake? You know, like that kind of thing. But also hear me, believe me, and know that I'm saying things to you for your best interest. Because oftentimes when I was that kid, do this and do that means I'm going to go do everything but those things.
The opposite.
You know, the opposite.
Oh, dude.
And
Yeah. No, oh, for sure, dude. That's my 14-year-old, and like, so she's getting ready to go be a freshman in high school,
yeah,
and she is very outgoing. She's a lot like me. She has these moments where she desires this connection with her friends, and me being somebody who went through that same thing in high school. Obviously, she's a girl; it's a little bit different.
yeah,
I try to impart some of my wisdom that I've learned over the years about, relationships and friendships and chasing things that don't really matter.
yeah,
But how do you tell that to a 14-year-old girl? Like it's so tough, and I've been really struggling how to communicate that properly with her, just so I don't see her. You don't want your kids to make the same mistakes that you did, but at some point in time, I think you just have to accept the fact, like, okay, you can give them everything that you've learned, and then just kind of hope, that they
yeah,
see the light at some point in time. But they gonna have to go and figure it out on their own. Like, you can't tell a kid about heartbreak from, how bad, your friends can shit on you. Um,
yeah,
you don't know how to you can't portray that to them enough, or in a way that they're going to
right,
truly understand until they feel it on their own. And that's a struggle for me, because I don't you don't want to see your kids hurt, you don't, and
right.
you don't want to see your kids go through that. That's one thing that I'm struggling with right now immensely.
What's really
Yeah,
interesting is like even children at the same age that are different generations, like our generation, our kids' generation, even older's, like there's still the things that everybody's going to go through that, and everybody almost kind of generationally still handles them the same way. Like doesn't really matter what age group you're part of. And it made me think when you just said like, dealing with heartbreak or whatever for like your oldest, right? Like we had really good family friend. Their daughter is your daughter's age and just went through the very first breakup thing ever,
Hmm.
right? And it was like, okay, just so everybody knows, like the breakup happened, like the mom's telling all the friends, like just so you guys
yeah,
know, the first breakup
Right.
happened, and like she's in her room, she's been listening to really sad music for nothing but a week, like she's just dealing with it. We're like, dude, that everybody does
Right.
that. Like that's just like everybody still,
Yeah,
like no matter what
my
age.
chem's on repeat.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Listening to a bunch of moody emo music, and that's just like what it is. Like everybody has that, like those same things that you deal with that you can't, like you can try to prepare for it as best you can, and then when the thing happens, no, like that's the thing too that I think about all the time is like all of these things that I know are going to happen, that because everybody deals with them, you could prepare only so much, right? Like you said, Drew, like and just hope and pray that like when the time comes they know how to deal with it, but at the same time when the thing happens they need to know that like home is the safe spot,
Yep.
where like that can be where they can come and tell you what they're feeling and explain those things to you, and hopefully like through all of that is like when you've built up that communication throughout the previous year, so like they don't just peace out and like because I mean we all have friends and like relatives or whatever that it's like, dude, I'm not going to talk to my dad about anything, you know what I mean, and
yeah,
like I'm,
Yep.
I'm heading out of here, like I'm not going to deal with this, and then you get that part of everything, and so that's just, I mean, it's the funny thing where it's like there's the things that we know we're all going to have to deal with kids, and because we dealt with them, everybody's dealt with them, but you can't really prepare for the individual moment itself, because you
yeah,
never know how it's exactly
Right.
going to shake out. So it's like you just gotta do it as it's going. Because and then like with every other kid after, it's like the same thing could happen, but that kid's gonna be totally different in response than the first kid did, having almost the exact same experience. You know, so
Yeah.
that like
Well,
that's the game when you've got multiple. It's just like, dude, I got to be able to handle this 5 different ways. You know what I
well,
mean?
that's like me and my brothers. They're twins. They're born 10 years
Yeah,
behind me. The three of us could not be more different. I mean,
yeah,
raised in the same house. They're twins raised at the same time. They were kind of preemies. So, when I'm 10 years old, I always joke with my parents. I said, I remember that first Christmas because I realized that my life was changed forever. Because before it was like, I got all the presents, I got all the
yeah.
attention. And now
Yep.
it's like, oh, you got a t-shirt and some socks or something. But
Right.
it's just crazy how, like, it's crazy how that dynamic changes everything. But, that is one hurdle that I had with my parents was, to me, at times, I felt that the phone call to them was more of a danger than I was
Mm,
already in. And not because they were abusive or anything like that, but it's just like that feeling of, we told you not to do this and you're in this.
yeah.
One
Oh
thing
yeah.
I've tried to impart, one thing I've tried to impart on my son is like, no matter how bad you think it is, I'm going to have an answer if you call me. I said, if you got a body, I got a shovel in a hole. You know what I mean? But you've got to call me. And that's
Hmm.
the only advice that I kind of give him over and over and over because I never heard that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care how bad it is, how drunk you are, you call me, I'll get you home. Like, don't get in the car, don't drive, don't get in there with somebody else. If you get yourself in trouble, I'm your first ticket out. Like, I'm going to help you endlessly. But that's really the only thing you can say and hope that it sticks because, like I said, I never heard that conversation. Like, call
Yeah.
us no matter what. And that phone call would have probably changed the direction of my life multiple times. If I felt like I had that safety net all the time. And I don't fault my parents for it now because they were just young. They just didn't know
Yeah.
any better,
Yep.
Yep.
and looking at it when you're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, it's a very different perspective than when you have a child of your own. Like, you want to protect them. And that's what my parents were. They were overly protective. They just wanted to make sure that everything was good. But that's what sparked that rebellion in me that was like, don't get a tattoo. Okay. Here we are, that kind of thing.
How about I
So
cover my
if you, if
entire
you,
body in them?
yeah, well, you can get one. So I had to make
Yeah.
them all connect. But
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I don't think I was a bad kid. I didn't have enough rope at times, and then I had too much rope at times. So
Oh
Yeah.
that's the struggle. How do you give a kid enough rope to hang themselves, but you're there to catch them when they fall? It's like
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to figure out and really understand about life because my dad would say the same things about me and his
Yeah.
dad would say the same things about him and so on and so forth. So it's like, it's a cycle. So how do we fix this cycle? Like, how do I fix it? As a man, that's one thing that I really challenge myself to figure out is like, how do you do this thing so that everybody around you is better?
So that's one of the biggest
And,
things that
and you, and you feel better yourself, not that you're giving and giving till you're gone, but like, how do you make it work where everybody's benefiting from your existence?
Oh, 100%. And that's you talk about the cycle. I grew up, in a family that like, you know, my dad grew up with four brothers, and my grandpa was a hard ass. And so
Yep.
there's just like this level of like male communication that just doesn't take place in the family, right?
Yep.
That's the one cycle that I am breaking in my house. I am going to over communicate with my boys if I have to. I mean, we're going to always keep that line open. Like, anytime, like Hudson, my 9-year old, he's got something bothering him, I pry it out of him. Like, no, we're not going to sit
Yeah.
here and
Yeah.
harbor this stuff. Like, we're getting it out. And so that's because like you said, Brandon, like, dude, I grew up, my parents were divorced when I was in second grade. So I got tons of rope to hang myself with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody was looking out for me
Right.
because there's a lot of trouble that I should have gotten into with the stuff that we did. And, there's like those times like I knew in the back of my head that I could have called my old man
Yeah.
or my mom, and they maybe a fear of consequence, on the back side of that was maybe the
Yeah.
driving force of not making that phone call.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so just like you said, opening that communication up and just saying like, hey, no matter what's eating at you, like let's talk about it, let's get it off our chest because dude, walking around with that shit for 30 years, like, sucked. And I didn't even
Yeah.
realize how bad. The thing is like, I didn't even realize what the effect of some of this stuff had on me until I started pulling those bricks out of my backpack and really, looking at things that from a 10,000 foot view, and then diving in on these little microcosms, of why I am the way that I am. And dude, it's been so eye opening. It just try.
Hmm.
There's this book I picked up. It's like, I forget the name of it exactly, but it's something along the lines of like parenting your inner child, and
Yeah.
going back and pulling all that stuff apart, and really digging into it. And a lot of that has to do with, just not wanting to communicate with people,
Yeah.
which
Well, I
which
think
is
what
weird because
happens,
I'm pretty good at it. It's just something that,
yeah.
at the family level, that we just didn't do.
Well, I think for me personally, it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to let you categorize me this way because I'm not that way. But then when I really kind of dig into it, and it's like, well, multiple people have described me this way or noticed this characteristic about me. And then when I look into it, it's like, shit, I am that way. Like I am this
Right.
person, and why am I? So it's the why, the 7 whys. Why did I do that? You know, what made me feel that? Like, you just go down the why. Like, what led me to these choices? What led me to these decisions? And over and over and over, I look at my life now, and it's like, one, I didn't give myself enough grace. Like, truly, I did not. I held myself to such a line, but I also kept myself in those places of like anger and frustration and pain because I told Ross this when I was training, it was the same playlist every day because that playlist had like emotional connection or it charged things within me. And I'm a very like music centric person. Like if I want to get happy, I can listen to happy music and I'll be great. I want to get sad, put on some Towns Van Zandt, and I'll be sobbing in an hour. But it's like I didn't even realize how influential that music was, those lyrics were to perpetuate my anger. And dude, I'm a pretty dangerous writer of my own story. And what I found is many times I exaggerated the characters. You know what I mean? Like if somebody hurt me, they really fucking hurt me. If somebody lied
Yep.
to me, well, they fucking crossed the bridge that we're never going back across. And I didn't extend the same grace that I expected. You know what I mean? If I lied to someone, I expected them immediately to accept my apology and forgive. But I could not forgive those things. And I think for me, kind of being a hypocrite, and realizing that was a big like fall from grace for me. Like, wait a minute, you're expecting all this of other people and you're not holding that same standard. So you got to
Yeah,
change. And dude,
that
that was a
ego
big one.
death.
Oh yeah, for sure. It took, I mean, it took a lot of effort and a lot of attempts to try to break those walls down, because then you really do become susceptible to the idea that every place that you've been and are is directly your choice, you know, and
Yep.
that's a heavy one to swallow.
Oh, yeah, we are a product of our decisions, and
Yep.
man, that's something, dude. When you sit down and you have that look in the mirror, it's like the thing that I always say to, that I've kind of picked up on, that if you could give one gift to the world, it would be give everybody the gift of self awareness. And
Yeah.
sometimes, and you can get like, can be self aware, like, Nick Kravaniak and I have talked about this at length.
Yeah.
Like, you can be self aware to a fault, even,
Yeah.
where you just, you constantly, putting that blame on yourself where you may not need to all the time. And but
Yeah.
but but being self-aware is such a gift, because then you can process these things, and you're not walking around, you know with this, high and mighty attitude. um I don't know how to explain, that run that thought out, but like, yeah, dude, just especially with the kids, like, looking at myself in the mirror and deciding, okay, we're gonna do things differently now. It
Yeah.
was just it's a big, like you said, dude. It's shedding that skin is so freaking difficult, and for me,
Yeah.
it's been really hard. And then, like you mentioned before, like when you lost the when you got injured, you put all this work into this thing, and you're like, well, who the hell am I now? Like,
Right.
that's something that I've struggled with recently. It's like, I've been chasing this dream of bow hunting forever, for as long as I can remember. I've made it my entire personality, And it's
Right.
like, do I want, like, I need something different. I'm not saying I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
do that anymore, but I just need something else in there to to see, to get to the depth of me.
Yeah. Well, I think you can, for years I was Brandon the power lifter, Brandon the strong guy, the big guy. All of that was wrapped in, and it's, I would say you feel that too. Like you're Drew the Selway guy, the quiver guy. Like you can become what you do to a level that it's like some guys relish in that, but I'm always looking at myself like, is this the best I can be? And sometimes that's a good question, and sometimes it's a painful question because, I'm like you with the hunting. We hunted so much last year and so hard for so little to show for it. I can tell you the lessons I learned. I can tell you the mistakes we made and the good choices we made. But dude, it's like, is that how I'm going to define myself because I didn't kill a deer? You know what I mean? Like, or I wasn't successful on a hunt. Like, is that what I'm going to hang my hat on as the hinge of my worth? Because I'm very careful about not being the same person I was with powerlifting. And dude, when you're on a run and you're having a good season, companies call, people call, a lot of that stuff. And then when you're not, it's a very challenging, like, am I doing this for that reward or what am I doing this for? And that's where I've been like redefining what this means to me, where it fits in my life, because I'm a bow hunter, but I'm not just a bow hunter.
Right.
And I think it's a valuable place for me to be because everything last year felt like it hinged on success or failure of that hunt, whatever hunt I was on. And it's like, I think I made it miserable on myself because that's the only way I looked at it. I wasn't gleaning the wins of, okay, yeah, you were just behind this deer and that's good. Like you got close, but you didn't get it done. But we live in a world of top result. We don't celebrate enough the steps to the top goal. Like as a hunter, there's so many elements in play and there's so many factors. It's like I'm looking at my lifetime as a hunter now. Like how can I enjoy this for 20 more years, 25 more years?
Yep.
That's what I want to do now. I don't want to make it so miserable that it's like if I don't kill it, like I'm not the guy that's fully behind, like if you don't get an animal, there's still this beautiful story. Yeah, there is, but what are we doing it for? I have that
Right.
competitive side to myself that oftentimes in an unsuccessful hunt, as far as the harvest or kill, um, I'm left. What was that for? And I'm trying to get the answers from that stuff now. But to not really beat that point to death, but as a man to your kids, as a father to your kids, do you have a hero complex in that you have to be their hero or you're seeking to be their hero? Do you think they view you as a hero currently?
Oof. I man, if I'm looking at myself in the mirror, I don't want to be their hero. There's plenty of
Yeah.
other guys to look up to, um, that are way better than me. Um, but do I want to be somebody that they look up to? Absolutely. Um,
Right.
and but as far as being a hero, man, that's like that comes with a lot of that's heavy. Um,
Yeah.
because you need to, if that's the case, then you need to make sure that you are buttoned up. And
Yeah.
and I look at parenting as, I guess, as a journey of self discovery as well. Like I'm learning more about myself every day, with my
Yeah.
kids, and how to be better to them. And so I just want them to look at me and be like, at the end of the day, like when this time runs out for me, I want them to look at, like, hey, dad may not have been this perfect guy, but he really worked at trying to be better, in all
Yeah.
facets of his life. I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I think hero to human is the journey. Like you want to be their hero when they're young, and then you want to help them realize that no, I did those things in spite of how human I am. And here's how human I am. And then let them see that. Like
Yep.
my dad, um, saying the word I love you or the words I love you was always kind of a tough pill for him. And he had an open heart surgery, kind of a massive heart attack situation, open heart surgery. And I just remember seeing him after that. And it was, dude, it was instantaneous change. Like all the words that he couldn't say were able to come, all the kindness that, may have been under the surface and intended, but wasn't vocalized or, exterior is there now. And it's like, it took him almost dying to have the same kind of wake up I did when I had my injury. Like, you can't be this person anymore. But for him, it took, double that time. So I wonder now, like, what he went through. And we haven't talked about it. It's a great point that we probably should, but like, what changed in him when he thought he was going to die? Literally, it was a widowmaker type situation. So it's like, chance of survival pretty slim. And really, watching him after the surgery become this weakened version of himself was a very humanizing thing for me, because even though we haven't always been close and had like this ultra tight relationship, I always knew my dad was on the side of right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's on the Rushmore of men in my life, because dude's never drank. I don't know him to have ever told a lie. I don't know him to, even when the lie or the truth was painful as shit, there was no comforting white lie. So he's like the epitome of doing everything right. But I also think, learning from his failures, he was unable to communicate what being right was like as a human. It was just like almost like robotic. Like, I get up at 4:00, I go to bed at 9, I do this, I do this. It was a system, but it didn't allow for that human aspect sometimes. It was like,
that's a lot of that generation too. I think just that I think, to a fault. I mean, no fault, maybe no fault of their own. They just didn't have the tools like we do now.
Yeah. Well, it's just not. It's like, men having conversations like this, especially openly and for public consumption, are just not a traditional thing, and I think I wrestle with that too. Like, am I just being a pussy because all I think about is my emotions and feelings? Or is this really maybe the missing link for a lot of men prior? Like, can we capture that feeling sooner than 60 years old, when we realize it's basically over? The time is very short. You catch that ride at 30, you got a half a life left to figure it out and get it right, But that's
absolutely, dude.
I'm so grateful for my injury now, but in the moment I wasn't, because it made me face a lot of shit.
Well, I'm super grateful, like you just said. I'm grateful for guys like yourselves, like, and some of my other close friends. Like, we're not afraid to, to have these conversations. I'm not afraid to call my buddies and check in on them. Like, I called a buddy the other day, just out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him in a while. I said, "Hey, dude, what's up?" And I said, "Just want to check in, make sure you're cool." And he ended up needed somebody to talk to in that moment. And dude, like, being there, being able to do that is such a gift. Like, I truly enjoy that, being able to be there for people and have these conversations, because it helps, like you said, man, it helps break down these barriers where we don't have to carry around this resentment and this whatever it is with us anymore. We can get it off our chest and know that we got guys in our corner, and and then getting other guys to have these conversations is only going to help benefit society, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's better kids, it's better kids, which equals better adults, which equals maybe that doesn't take as long to figure it out. That's what I'm hopeful for. Most of all for my kid is that he can stay on this path. He was a 4.0 student, AP 4s on all of his classes. It's just, he's such an impressive
dude, right?
Yeah. He's very fascinated in engineering, going to engineering school at UK, like, very, very productive child. But I don't want him to be a process child. I want him to be able to do those things that equal success, but I want him to be able to, like, have a tangible reason on why he's doing it, not just, this is going to get me where I'm going. It's like, is this actually where I want to go, and navigating that. But yeah, dude, you guys are in for the ride, because you've got teens. Ross has got the young ones, dude, 14 to 18. He'll be 18 this fall. He's 17, but like, he's his own individual now. Like, he gets in the car and drives where he wants to go. He comes home when he wants to come home, like, within reason. But it's like, you've only got a few more chances to catch them, because their friends become more important. Their freedom becomes more important. And dude, I think you guys are doing a great job. I just hope you can get up to the 18 mark, because that's such a hard line to get people to. Because even my son, the last semester of school was senioritis really, really bad, and he knows more than anybody right now. But he's got life figured out. He's got everything. He's making $15 an hour, so he's got big money in his pocket. He's loaded.
Oh yeah.
But dude, I don't know. I'm excited for you guys to watch, because you guys are so invested, and it's like, I'm learning from you guys, on how to do this right. Because hopefully I have a bunch of grandbabies and I can spoil the shit out of them. But I think that's another point. that's why so many grandparents are awesome, because they never got to actualize it for their kids. But then
Hmm.
it's like, wait a minute, we look back and we see all the mistakes we made.
You
Grandbabies are
almost get
getting
a
all the
do-over.
candy.
You get a
Oh
do-over
yeah,
almost because it's just little
that's
versions
right.
of yourselves again.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah, dude.
Grandparents out.
it's so funny because my mom's mom, my grandma, she was the spoiler of all
Yeah,
of
yeah,
us, and it used to drive my mom crazy. Like,
yep.
we'd go out, she'd take us birthday shopping and be like, go get this giant thing that you want, and we're not going to tell your mom, and we'll just bring it
Yeah.
home. And like that, and we'd show up, like, she got my sister a cat one year, like, without telling my mom. It was stuff like that. And
Yeah.
like I remember just mom just being like, "What are you doing?" Like, and being mad at her about it. And then like with her three grandkids and my two and my sister's one, dude, she's that times 10. And it's
Oh
like you're
yeah.
like it's literally you're just the exact same. And I knew you were gonna be that way too. And so it's just hilarious to see. And then like the relationship between her and my grandma, and then her and my sister is like the
Oh
exact
yeah.
same type of relationship that they had going through all that same stuff. It's just hilarious to me to see how that just trickles down, and it's like it doesn't matter. You're like the grandparents are going to do grandparent things, and it's like
Yep.
can't stop them. You can't stop
Oh,
them.
my great granny was amazing because we lived like 2 or 3 miles from her house, so it was like a bike ride down. And my aunt and my mom would always go there for lunch. And lunch was amazing at my granny's because it was like you got a base of something that she cooked that day, and then every pot that was in the refrigerator from leftovers was put on the
Yep.
plate. So it
Yep.
was like it was
Yep.
either salmon patties or like fried chicken tenderloins or something like that, and then it was all the green beans and the cabbage or whatever was in the fridge, and then you always had like an array of desserts, like little Debbie cakes, the peach
Yes.
cups, cottage cheese, just, and it kept coming. No
Yes.
matter how much you ate, honey, you look hungry. You look like you need a
Yep.
little snake here, a snack here. Oh, here's a Mountain Dew. Here's a grape
Yep.
soda. Here's,
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. It's
go home
Dude,
in
hilarious.
this carb coma.
my grandma was such a badass. My dad's mom, she was such a badass. She still is badass. But like, dude, I remember we'd go to the cabin in Pennsylvania together, and she would get up like there was times when Dad couldn't come, like, but I got to go scouting for turkeys. Dude, she'd get all
Yeah.
camoed up with me, and she'd go out with me, and we sit and I'm working birds in, and she's sitting there with me, like hiding in the bushes, like it was cool stuff. And then my 18th birthday, we're at the cabin together, and she goes, "That's your birthday." Hands me a shot of Gentleman Jack, like,
Yeah.
yeah, just
Yeah.
like cool stuff like that. And
That's awesome.
yeah, dude, Ross. But real quick, like with the younger ones, and Brandon, you kind of past this point now, but like with mine, the one thing with my kids that I am super like there's some non-negotiables in our house, and like with my daughter, it's swimming. Like you gotta have to do some type of physical activity,
Yep.
some foundational piece that's gonna set you into the next um, in your life, that's gonna give you a good core base, to start with physically. Um, and for my boys, it's wrestling, and you have to give them that manufactured suffering, and because they're not
Yeah.
gonna get it in the soft world that we're in now.
Yeah.
And dude, so like wrestling is a non-negotiable for us. The boys, whether we want to go or not, we're going. And
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. Like you got to let kids be themselves, but at the same time, you have to have some things like because what's a better, like you guys roll, like what's a better teacher than going out and
Right.
getting your ass kicked on the mat?
Yeah.
Like there's just certain things that you can't teach a kid other than
Yeah.
doing something like that. And that's the one thing that I stress upon, like all my buddies with their kids, like get them on the mat, whether it's jujitsu, wrestling, in the pool, some type of strenuous physical activity that they absolutely need it, not just for their for their physical, but their mental as well.
Yeah. Well, I like sports like that where you can't judge a wrestler. You know what I mean? Like you can look at them and they can have a body and you can be like, okay, this guy's going to be strong or he's going to be whatever. But there's some people, especially in jujitsu, they look like they just walked in off out of the coffee shop. You know what I mean? Like they look like they have no physical threat about them, and then they just manhandle you for 5 minute rounds. So I think there's a lot of life that's learned through that. But something like swimming, I swam as a kid, and you get in that 55-degree pool water, and it's like, hey, you got to warm up with a 500, and it's like they're counting your meters. You know, every time you touch, you're getting a call. So it's like that 500 meters doesn't end at 350 because you want to or you're tired. It's like that 500 meters is just the freaking warm up. You know, and
Yep.
sometimes the warm up is what's going to get you through the rest of the day. So it's like those kind of things are so good for kids because they don't necessarily have the choice or the say. Because if they give up, then they're done. They're cooked. They lose. You know. So
Dude,
I
it's
think
hilarious.
anything like that is so important.
I
It's
think
hilarious because
probably my. Oh, go ahead, Ross.
I was just gonna say because my oldest, like he did, this is his third year of coach. It's coach pitch now, but third year baseball is t-ball the previous years. And that's just kind of like everybody shows up, everybody gets to hit, like it's just real low key type stuff. But then this last fall is when he started playing flag football, and like there was just one of those little things that kind of I could see in him like woke up,
Yeah.
in his want to like actually go do something like that. And it was really fun because I got to coach him. And so like you talk about the strenuous part, like I was kind of nervous about how I would do this in the practices that I would do. But then I got a bunch of like compliments from all of the parents. They're like, I can't believe you're having the boys do this. This is awesome. Like, please do this more. And what I would do is literally be like, because they're 5 and 6 years old, right? So their attention spans are half of a gnat. And so like if they weren't listening or if like we weren't doing stuff, like we had this big open field that we were at and there's this giant tree like 80 yards away. And I would tell them like, okay, guys, if we can't listen and focus, like we just gotta have to run to the tree and back and then we'll try again. Right. And like the first practice, probably did it 6 times, right? Like
Yeah.
they probably ran half a mile to that tree and back a couple of different times. And like there's when they're that age, like yeah, they're tired, but they're still having fun while they're running. It's not like a
Yeah.
punishment yet. But what happens, it's like training a dog almost. Like you can't train a dog when they're hungry because they're not listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you gotta make sure they're fed. You gotta make sure they're a little bit tired so they can be receptive to what you're telling them, right?
Yep.
So like you got to kind of gas them a little bit so then they can at least focus on what you're saying and not be like the little 5-year-old boys, right?
Yeah.
And so by the end of the season, like I was, we maybe had to do it one time by the end of the season
Yeah.
for practice, and so
Yep.
it was so funny because I was like, one of the dads came up to me, he's like, dude, I told my dad that you make him run during practice and he thought it was the greatest thing ever. Like, and I was like, I'm glad you're saying that because I was a little nervous about making a bunch of 5-year-olds run as punishment 3 or 4 times at practice. Like, no, dude, please, like it's awesome. And so
Yeah.
you can, but they learn too, like, and then they learn through the like this running part sucks, right? Like I don't want to do this anymore. So
Yep.
that's the part of it. But then also like I said, when they come back, like they're actually more receptive to the things that I'm telling them. And like again, it's 5 and 6 year olds. We have like 3 plays, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, you cannot even contain a group of 8 6-year-old boys like on a
Yeah.
field to have all of them be doing separate things at the right time, on a football
Yeah.
field. And so it's just like, dude, and I had no assistant coach. So it's like, okay, like we're just you guys are gonna be in shape. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Right. We might lose every game. We're going to be in shape.
You guys are gonna be the fastest ones on the
Dude,
field.
You find like when you do that, like you have found out like there's such a thirst for that, and it's like parents, it's okay to push your kids to do stuff. It's
100%.
okay. You're not gonna hurt them. They're resilient. They're not gonna break. And my minimal experience coaching, with my kids is, I'm in the same boat. Like I'm gonna push this group of kids because I know they need it. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's the same receptive response from the parents. I mean, occasionally you'll get some, somebody who, throws a fit about it, but it's like the parents,
Dude,
don't be afraid to push your kids. It's okay.
cannot wait. I can't, because I've asked Riggins a bunch of times. Like he's asked me to coach him through college. I'm like, well, okay, that's a different story, but I'll coach you as long as I can. And so I'm like, but it's hilarious because I am like, I know I'm going to continue coaching as long as I can with him. I am like antsy waiting for that first parent interaction. Like I get so psyched up at practices and games. I'm like, someone bring it to me, please.
Let's go.
Like, let me throw you out of here. I want to do it so bad. It's hilarious.
The joys of parenting and fatherhood.
Oh, it's great. Well, we got just a couple minutes left. Everybody's got a piece out of here, but we didn't even really talk hunting and stuff at all, and maybe we can do another one, Drew, here in a couple of months when we actually like get into the season and whatnot. But as you're kind of, we're in preseason mode for pretty much everybody around this point, getting ready to go up into the woods and chase some animals and stuff like that. I just wanted to know what kind of stuff you've got planned for this fall. Like, do you have a couple of really fun hunts that you're looking forward to, or is
Dude,
it just kind of the normal stuff?
no, right now I got nothing, dude. I'm not
Yeah,
going out west. I did not draw Kansas, so I got a couple of open invites to go hunt with a buddy in Missouri. But
nice.
honestly, like I've been going at it pretty hard the last few years, and I
Yeah,
think I might take my foot off the gas a little bit this
yeah,
fall. Just for like my own reset. I shot my buck last year in Kansas, and
that
I
was
just had
awesome.
this weird
Giant.
moment. Yeah, I just but at the same time, man, like it was my best buck I've ever killed. Best
Yeah.
whitetail, best stick bow deer. Um, I don't know, dude. Just didn't something didn't sit well with me about it, and I don't know why. So I'm working on processing that, but I'm gonna focus on getting the kids out more and spending more time with
Yeah,
them in the
Yeah.
field rather than chasing my own pursuits.
that's cool.
Yeah. That's kind of my approach this year. Going to top of Texas in October, whitetail, and then maybe some pigs or something like that. Just not a lot. Last year kind of burned me out, just so much every weekend. And I told her, like, Liz, I told her we need to take like just a week and dedicate to a hunt instead of trying to do weekends. Because, like, by the Sunday, we're starting to figure them out again because every week they move a little bit, they're a little different. So instead of just taking 2 or 3 days at a time, this is the week we're going to go hunt Ohio. Let's burn it down. And after that,
Yep.
it's done. But I want to be done hunting by Thanksgiving. Like, I don't want to be hunting December and January again this year.
I
It's
think
just,
that's a good plan. I think especially with how you guys, if you're gonna take a similar approach to
yeah,
where you were hunting, I think it just in my experience hunting in public land in Ohio,
yeah,
middle of the week is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is always best.
yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, get there Sunday, scout them out, kind of let Monday bleed out, and then hit it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday really hard, and be done by
Yep.
Saturday. Just give it a
Yeah,
week, go as hard as you can, be smart. But then,
That
because dude,
that's the best.
it was like 3 months, 12, 14 trips to the same place, every weekend for about 3 months, and it was just like we could have gone to an outfitter at that point, from
yeah.
the money we spent on hotels and food, and that's the question I was asking myself, like, how valuable was this? Did you learn enough to pursue that? Or is it like, it's just, you're busy and you're better off just going to an outfitter? So I'm asking myself those questions.
Well,
It's
I
like,
think last year, dude, you gained. I mean, just in our conversations and watching you and Liz cook, like it was. I personally know I've been there, and I know that
yeah,
that season is super foundational for you because
for sure.
you guys learned so much, and you're gonna take what you learned from that, and you're gonna be able to apply it so much, easier going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we scouted that property in North Carolina. That was the other one. So North Carolina, Ohio, probably maybe Kentucky, but Texas. So 3 or 4 hunts, 3 weeks,
Nice.
4 weeks. But that's really going to be like, that's really all I need. I would
Yeah,
rather dedicate for a week and just say I got it done or I didn't, and be able to move on, because that was the other part of it too. Was it almost got to the point like every Friday you're starting to be like anxious. Like,
yeah,
is this going to be another weekend where you go out here and just spend $400 or $500 and come home empty?
yeah.
So
Yep.
that's a heavy calculation, but looking forward to the season regardless.
I've got I mean the one like main trip is I'm gonna do an elk trip in September. I'm not sure how long yet, but it's gonna be over here in the Owyhees, which is the
There you
mountain
go.
range in southwest Idaho. It's crazy. If you look at the map of Idaho counties and like population or whatever, Owyhee County is the biggest county in the state, and there's like 7 people that live in the entire county. It's like just totally desolate. It looks like Mars out there. It's
Yeah.
wild. So it'll be
Yeah,
a
it's
really
all
fun one to
that high desert stuff.
it is. It
Yeah.
really is. So we'll be doing that, and then, dude, I've got all of October circled to go get that freaking buck
There you go.
that has eluded me for 3 years now, and I know he's up there still. So that's my October, and luckily that's like a place where it's only a 40-minute drive to get to my glassing spot basically, and so I mean I can make a bunch of little even just morning and day trips and stuff like that throughout most of the month. But like, dude, I'm getting him this year. He's
If
my whale.
There you
listen,
go.
if I was in your situation with that deer, I would have him killed opening day. I'd have
That's
him
my
killed
plan.
before opening day. I would know
Yep.
exactly where he's living, and I
Yep.
would be having my strategy set up to go in there and kill him first thing opening day.
Dude, did I send you that picture last year, Drew, when I was on that day where I chased him around that whole day? Dude,
Yeah.
that was I was so freaking pissed about that whole day. But it was awesome because I'm like, I thought he was gone from the previous year. And so like that, I saw that little buck, and then I saw him like walk out from behind this tree behind him. I'm like, oh damn, he's still up here. So I'm like, I hunted him till the very last day of the season. And so, you know, barring some random weather death that he might have had over the winter, like there's a good chance he's still up there. So
For sure.
it'll be
Heck yeah.
fun. But
Well, you got his number. Go get him. Go get him.
Yep.
that's right. Well, Drew, thanks man for hopping on this morning. It was awesome.
No, it's been a
just
pleasure.
Great
talk to you some
podcast,
more.
man. Thank you.
It was
No,
great.
as always, love talking to you boys.
All right, we'll catch you later.
Yep. See ya.
Thanks, guys.